Hey folks. So it's a strange and anxious time in the world right now, and I think we're all kind of on edge, not knowing what's coming next. And while there are a crap ton of brave people out there working hard to keep us safe and fed, I'm mostly doing my part by staying home. And that means I've completely run out of excuses not to make more videos. Yeah, it's been more than a year since my last real review, but Teddy Tech is back. I recently had a chance to review the Acer Aspire 3, which is one of Acer's more affordable laptops. You might remember I also reviewed its bigger brother, the Aspire 5, back in 2018, and I thought it was pretty solid and well built, and so is the Aspire 3 as it turns out. Still, I can't recommend this specific configuration to you. Despite having the latest mobile CPU, the thing's a pain to use. In fact, the specs on this model, they show how cutting just one or two corners when buying a laptop can ruin the whole thing. So let's take a look at the spec sheet. This model comes with a 10th generation Core i5 10210U, 8GB of RAM, a 1TB hard drive, an NVIDIA MX250 discrete GPU, and a 17.3-inch display, and it retails for $799 Canadian. Now, you can't get this model in the US right now, but you might still learn a thing or two from this review, so stick with me. The Aspire 3 has a well-constructed all-plastic enclosure, and there are no parts that feel loose or flimsy. The port selection's a bit bare bones. On the left side, there's a standard barrel connector for charging. There's a gigabit Ethernet connector, an HDMI port, one USB 2.0 port, one USB 3.1 Type A port, and a headphone jack. And on the other side, there's a single, lonely YouTuber who eats his dinner over the kitchen sink. I mean, a USB 2.0 port. The laptop weighs 2.8 kilograms or 6.2 pounds, which is a lot considering that maybe 40% of the internal volume of this laptop is empty space. Seriously, you could practically fit a whole other laptop in there. Acer usually makes a good keyboard, and this here is no exception. The keys have good travel and they strike evenly, though there's a fair bit of flex in the middle of the keyboard, and if you're looking for a backlight, you're gonna have to look elsewhere. The trackpad is Windows Precision and it's pretty good. It's plastic, yeah, but it tracks gestures well and you get a nice solid click. On paper, the large 17-inch display seems like a plus, especially considering the discrete GPU inside. But Acer sells two types of display. You can get the Aspire 3 with a full HD 1080p IPS panel, or you can get a cheaper TN panel with a native resolution of 1600 by 9. Unfortunately, I've got the cheaper TN panel. TN panels are more affordable, but they have worse color reproduction compared to IPS displays, and they just have horrible viewing angles. And this display is just truly bad. There's no angle at which at least part of the display is in color shifted. If you set things up so the top half of the screen looks okay, the bottom's washed out, and vice versa. So why not just hook it up to an external monitor? Well, if you're going to use an external display, then just get a 15-inch laptop. There's no reason to buy a laptop with a 17-inch display if you're not going to use it, especially not this laptop, because as we've seen, all that extra internal volume isn't being put to good use by, for example, being filled with more battery. It's just empty space. So this laptop teaches us one really important lesson. A really bad display ruins an otherwise well-spec'd laptop. So in general, whether you're buying an Acer or another laptop, stay away from TN panels. Just promise me you will. Just promise me. It's not worth saving a few bucks. So the display looks like shit, but how does the laptop perform? Let's take a look at some benchmarks. The i5 10210U is a newish 10th generation mobile CPU from Intel with 4 cores and 8 threads. Geekbench 4 comes back with a single core score of 4,997 and a multi-core score of 15,652. And these are excellent scores near the high end of what you can expect from this chip. The discrete GPU is an NVIDIA MX250, and just like with the earlier MX150, there are two versions of this GPU. There's the normal 25-watt chip, and there's a less powerful 10-watt chip. So watch out. This here is the 25-watt model, and it turns out it's faster than the MX150, but only by a bit. On TimeSpy, the MX250 has a graphic subscore of 1,130, which is only about 7.5% better than the MX150 and the Aspire 5 that I reviewed in 2018. The Aspire 3 scored okay on Deus Ex Mankind Divided's internal benchmark at medium settings in 900p with an average 28.3 FPS. And as for real-world performance, Well, most AAA games should be playable on this laptop at 720p at low to medium settings, and some will hover around 30 FPS at 900p and medium. So if you're on a tight budget and you're not worried too much about high frame rates, you should be able to work with this chip. Despite a new CPU and discrete graphics though, this particular configuration is still a stinker. It's a total fail, but again, it's one we can learn from. See, its performance is completely hamstrung by the mechanical drive inside. The 5400 RPM drive is just the worst. It takes ages to boot, Windows is sluggish, and it takes its sweet time loading applications. And here's another lesson to learn. A mechanical hard drive just doesn't cut it as your boot drive in 2020. You gotta have an SSD. Solid state drives are more expensive, yes, so you'll end up with less space for the same money, but regardless of the rest of a laptop specs, no other component is as important as an SSD to making a computer feel fast to use. Compare this laptop's PC Mark 10 score 3,273 with the Aspire 5, which scored 3,651 despite having a slower processor and GPU. Overall performance is getting dragged down by the mechanical drive. And even if you think you'll need a lot of space for your games, make sure you've got that SSD first, and then you can spend a little extra down the road on a slower external drive to boost your storage. Keep in mind, there are a lot of different Aspire 3 configurations, and what's available varies from country to country. By no means do I think you should avoid the Aspire 3 completely. They're well-built laptops, but trying to cut corners and save money by either choosing a cheap display or a mechanical hard drive is going to make any laptop a pain to use. If your budget's really tight, maybe take a look at buying a used laptop instead, something a year or two old. Not only can you save a few $100s compared to buying something new, but you're reducing waste and you're helping the environment too. So that's it for now. Thanks for letting me entertain you. Stay safe.